Imagine this frightening situation. You go to bed feeling perfectly fine, perhaps even content after what seemed like a nutritious late-night snack. Your cardiovascular system feels stable, your thoughts are sharp, and you fall asleep peacefully without any concerns. However, during the early morning hours between 3 and 5 a.m., while you're experiencing your deepest sleep phase, something devastating starts happening in your neural pathways. When dawn breaks, everything has shifted permanently. You reach for your bedside clock, but your arm refuses to obey your mental commands. You attempt to speak to your partner, but what comes out are jumbled, meaningless sounds that don't match your intentions. As your spouse hurries to help you, their face, so recognizable for years, suddenly seems like that of a complete stranger. You can observe them, you sense you should know them, but their name, their essence, everything linking you to this individual has disappeared from your consciousness. This represents the harsh reality of a nocturnal stroke occurring during rest. No warning pain, no theatrical fall, no alert signals that movies have conditioned us to anticipate. Simply a silent, devastating robbery of your brain function while you remain completely oblivious. What triggered this life-changing incident? The explanation may astound you. It wasn't the tobacco you abandoned years earlier, or the sweeteners you've been carefully eliminating, or even the tension you've been controlling. Rather, it could have been that apparently wholesome snack you ate just hours before sleep, the identical portion of nuts you've depended on and consumed for years, possibly even decades. As a brain specialist who has dedicated more than 20 years to researching neurological wellness and stroke prevention, I've observed this devastating pattern unfold in hospital emergency departments and neurology units far too frequently. The trends I've documented continue to amaze me, and the studies I've undertaken have uncovered a troubling reality. Eating 5 particular varieties of popular nuts at improper times can cause your circulation to become dramatically thicker, raise your cardiovascular pressure to hazardous heights, and initiate a stroke during your slumber. This isn't meant to generate hysteria or distribute alarm. It's an essential alert grounded in reliable medical data and decades of clinical experience. Your upcoming midnight treat, harmless as it appears, could determine whether you awaken tomorrow with your abilities preserved or start a lengthy, challenging path of stroke rehabilitation. The concealed nighttime threat, recognizing your body's susceptible periods. Most individuals operate under the belief that health maintenance is mainly a daytime responsibility. We consume our prescriptions in the morning, work out during sunny hours, and monitor our nutrition throughout our conscious periods. Nevertheless, what most don't understand is that the most significant danger to our brain health frequently occurs at night, during those quiet hours when we assume we're most protected. Here's a medical fact that should alarm every individual beyond age 60. More than 25% of elderly people suffer strokes while sleeping. These aren't the obvious, apparent strokes portrayed in television medical shows. These are quiet brain incidents that happen without discomfort, without clear symptoms, and without any indication that might rouse you from your rest. The clinical terminology for this occurrence is nocturnal cerebrovascular events, and the data are both overwhelming and underdocumented. Based on current neurological studies, roughly 28% of all strokes in individuals over 65 happen during nighttime, usually between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. when the body's natural biological rhythms establish the ideal conditions for vulnerability. But what makes the body so defenseless during these periods? The explanation involves comprehending the intricate physiological transformations that happen as we mature, combined with the natural variations that occur during our rest cycles. Even when you feel entirely well as you fall asleep, your circulation appears normal, your pulse is consistent, your breathing is steady, hazardous changes are already starting to develop below your conscious awareness. Your heart system enters a condition best characterized as controlled disorder, where various elements combine to establish circumstances perfect for stroke. Your blood pressure, which should optimally decrease during evening hours, instead starts to vary erratically. This partially results from your body's circadian cycle, which naturally triggers slight blood pressure increases as night advances. However, in mature adults, this natural pattern often becomes disrupted, causing sudden, severe spikes that can happen without any external cause. At the same time, your circulation starts experiencing major changes in makeup and flow properties. While you rest, multiple factors unite to make your blood more thick and susceptible to clotting. You move less during sleep, reducing the natural circulation-enhancing benefits of muscle activity. You drink less fluid during nighttime, causing mild but meaningful dehydration. Your kidneys process less effectively during rest, permitting certain materials to build up in your bloodstream. The outcome is circulation that moves like dense liquid through vessels that have become progressively stiff and inflexible with age. Picture attempting to force honey through a network of old, fragile water hoses that have been exposed to numerous severe winters. The hoses have lost their adaptability, developed weak areas, and can no longer handle the pressure and flow they once managed effortlessly. When you introduce increased pressure to this system, even a minor increase, something unavoidably fails. This is where the apparently harmless evening treat becomes a potential catalyst for catastrophe. The incorrect foods eaten at the wrong moment can serve as the final element that forces your cardiovascular system past its capacity to manage, converting your peaceful rest into a medical crisis you won't even recognize until it's too late. The 5 hazardous nuts. 1. Brazil nuts. The quiet selenium excess, a hidden toxic buildup. Among all nuts that disguise themselves as healthful foods while potentially containing danger for seniors, Brazil nuts represent possibly the most treacherous threat. These large, apparently harmless nuts from the South American jungle are so remarkably nutrient-dense that they exceed the boundary from helpful to potentially deadly, particularly when eaten during the susceptible evening periods. The main danger in Brazil nuts is selenium, a trace element that demonstrates the concept that quantity determines toxicity. While selenium is certainly vital for human wellness, serving important functions in antioxidant activity, thyroid hormone processing, and immune system maintenance, the concentration found in Brazil nuts is so intense that it can rapidly push your system into selenium poisoning. To grasp the magnitude of this issue, examine these alarming figures. The National Health Institute suggests that elderly individuals consume no more than 55 micrograms of selenium daily. This suggestion isn't random. It's founded on comprehensive studies demonstrating that amounts beyond this limit can start causing harmful consequences, especially in mature adults whose systems process and remove minerals less effectively than younger people. Now, here's the startling truth. A single Brazil nut, just one, can hold anywhere from 68 to 91 micrograms of selenium, with some nuts containing up to 200 micrograms. This means that eating just one Brazil nut can elevate you to nearly 400% of your suggested daily consumption. If you're like many health-aware seniors who eat a small portion of these nuts as an evening treat, believing you're doing something good for your system, you could be consuming over 1,000 micrograms of selenium in one session, nearly 20 times the recommended daily quantity. The issue becomes dramatically worse when you consider consumption timing. When you eat Brazil nuts just before sleep, your system is shifting into its nighttime metabolic condition. During these periods, your liver's cleansing activities slow considerably, your kidney performance decreases, and your body's capacity to remove excess minerals becomes seriously limited. Unlike water-dissolving vitamins such as vitamin C, which your system can easily eliminate through urine, selenium is fat-dissolving and tends to collect in tissues, particularly in the liver, circulation, and brain. This accumulation doesn't occur instantly. It's a slow process that happens over weeks and months of regular Brazil nut eating. As selenium amounts increase in your system, they start causing toxic effects on your heart system. One of the most dangerous of these effects is how excess selenium impacts your blood's clotting systems. Selenium toxicity makes your platelets, the tiny blood cells responsible for creating clots when you're injured, become unusually sticky and overactive. Under normal conditions, platelets flow freely in your bloodstream, only clustering when there's a real need to stop bleeding from an injury. However, when selenium amounts become high, these platelets start gathering inappropriately, creating microscopic clots even when there's no injury present. During nighttime periods, when your circulation naturally slows and becomes more sluggish, these overactive platelets establish a perfect situation for stroke. Picture the traffic in your bloodstream during early morning as similar to peak traffic in a large city. Now imagine that selenium has sent out a quiet alarm, making blood cells suddenly slow down, group together, and create blockages throughout your circulatory system. These tiny clots don't necessarily cause immediate, obvious symptoms. Instead, they move through your bloodstream like microscopic explosives, seeking the narrowest, most vulnerable vessels in your system. When one of these clots meets a delicate artery in your brain, perhaps one already narrowed by years of age-related changes, it can completely obstruct blood flow to a brain section, causing what brain doctors call a silent stroke. The studies supporting this connection are both extensive and concerning. A major study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2014 tracked over 3,000 elderly adults for 5 years, monitoring their selenium consumption and heart outcomes. The researchers discovered a clear, dose-related relationship between selenium consumption and stroke risk. Participants who regularly ate high selenium amounts had a 24% increased stroke risk compared to those with moderate consumption levels. The study was especially revealing regarding selenium consumption timing. Participants who ate selenium-rich foods in the evening had significantly higher rates of early morning strokes compared to those who ate the same foods earlier in the day. The researchers theorized that evening eating, combined with the body's reduced nighttime detoxification ability, created perfect conditions for selenium accumulation and subsequent heart events. But here's the hidden danger that makes this situation even more dangerous. Many seniors are unknowingly eating selenium from various sources. A significant percentage of older adults take daily multivitamins, many containing 55 to 70 micrograms of selenium. They may also eat selenium-rich foods like tuna, eggs, or sunflower seeds throughout the day. When they add Brazil nuts as what they believe is a healthy evening treat, they're creating a selenium overload that their aging systems simply cannot manage. The symptoms of selenium toxicity are often subtle and easily blamed on other age-related changes. Tiredness, confusion, mild nausea, and sleep pattern changes are commonly dismissed as normal aging parts. Meanwhile, the real damage occurs silently in the heart system, preparing for a potentially devastating stroke. For people over 60, particularly those taking blood-thinning medications like warfarin or aspirin, or those managing conditions like high blood pressure or diabetes, evening eating of Brazil nuts represents an unrecognized but significant threat to brain health. The selenium overload can interfere with blood-thinning medications, making them either less effective or potentially dangerous, while simultaneously creating conditions that promote clot formation. The tragedy is that Brazil nuts, when eaten in appropriate amounts and at the right time of day, can actually benefit health. Their high selenium content, when not excessive, supports immune function and may help protect against certain cancers. However, the margin between beneficial and harmful is extremely narrow, and for seniors, that margin becomes even narrower during the vulnerable nighttime hours. 2. Salted almonds, the pre-sleep sodium rush, a heart time bomb. Almonds, in their natural, unsalted condition, are among the most praised nuts in nutrition science. They're naturally low in sugar, rich in heart-healthy monounsaturated fats, filled with magnesium for bone health, and loaded with vitamin E for antioxidant protection. Nutritionists and heart doctors routinely recommend them as part of a heart-healthy diet, and for good reason. Research consistently shows that regular almond eating can help lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and support overall heart health. However, the moment these nutritional champions are roasted in salt and eaten during evening hours, they transform from a health-promoting snack into a potential heart threat, particularly for adults over age 60. This transformation occurs due to a combination of factors related to sodium content, eating timing, and the aging body's reduced ability to handle sodium loads. To understand the scale of this problem, let's examine the numbers in detail. A modest handful of salted almonds, approximately 20 to 24 individual nuts, which is what most people consider a reasonable snack portion, contains between 200 and 250 milligrams of sodium. For comparison, this represents more than 20% of the total daily sodium intake recommended by the American Heart Association for older adults. The American Heart Association's guidelines aren't arbitrary suggestions. They're based on decades of research showing that sodium intake directly correlates with blood pressure levels, particularly in older adults. For seniors, the recommended daily sodium limit is 1,500 milligrams, with an ideal target of 1,000 milligrams for those already dealing with high blood pressure or heart disease. This means that a single evening snack of salted almonds can account for nearly a quarter of an entire day's sodium allowance. But the problem extends far beyond simple sodium counting. The timing of sodium eating plays a crucial role in how it affects your heart system, and evening eating presents unique dangers that many people, including some healthcare providers, don't fully appreciate. When you eat salty foods during the day, your system has multiple ways to handle the sodium load. Your kidneys work at peak efficiency, your blood vessels are more flexible and responsive, and your overall metabolic rate is higher, allowing for better processing and elimination of excess sodium. Additionally, daytime physical activity helps promote circulation and can help offset some of the blood pressure-raising effects of sodium eating. However, when you eat significant amounts of sodium in the evening, particularly within 3 hours of bedtime, you're essentially overwhelming your body's sodium handling capacity at precisely the time when these systems are least equipped to cope. During nighttime hours, kidney function naturally decreases by 20 to 30%, meaning that sodium clearance becomes significantly less efficient. Your blood vessels, already stiffer and less responsive due to age-related changes, become even more rigid during sleep. The physiological mechanism behind this danger involves what heart doctors call volume expansion. When you eat salty foods, your system naturally retains additional water to maintain the proper sodium-to-water ratio in your bloodstream. In younger, healthier individuals, this volume expansion is temporary and easily managed by the heart system. However, in adults over 60, whose arteries have lost much of their natural elasticity and whose heart function may be subtly compromised, this sudden increase in blood volume can create dangerous pressure spikes. These pressure spikes don't occur immediately after eating the salty snack. Instead, they typically appear between 3 and 5 a.m. during what sleep researchers call the vulnerable window. This timing coincides with natural circadian rhythm changes that already cause slight increases in blood pressure, creating a compounding effect that can push blood pressure to dangerous levels. The sneaky nature of this problem is that you won't feel these blood pressure spikes occurring. Unlike daytime high blood pressure, which might cause noticeable symptoms like headaches or dizziness, nighttime blood pressure elevation occurs while you're unconscious, unaware that your heart system is under extreme stress. During these early morning hours, your brain is particularly vulnerable. Brain tissue requires a constant, steady supply of oxygen-rich blood to function properly. When blood pressure spikes occur in arteries that are already narrowed or damaged by years of age-related changes, the result can be catastrophic. Small blood vessels in the brain can rupture under the pressure, causing bleeding strokes. Alternatively, the pressure changes can dislodge small pieces of plaque from artery walls, creating clots that can block blood flow to crucial brain regions. Research published in the Journal of High Blood Pressure followed over 2,500 seniors for 7 years, tracking their evening sodium intake and heart outcomes. The study found that participants who regularly ate high-sodium snacks within 3 hours of bedtime had a 31% higher rate of early morning strokes compared to those who avoided evening sodium intake. More alarming still, the study found that this increased risk persisted even among participants who maintained normal daytime blood pressure levels. The addictive nature of salted almonds makes this problem significantly worse. The combination of salt, fat, and crunchiness activates reward pathways in the brain, making it extremely difficult to stop at just one handful. Food scientists have extensively studied this phenomenon, and they've found that salted nuts are among the most difficult snack foods to eat in moderation. The typical pattern involves eating one handful, then just a few more, then finishing the entire container without realizing how much has been eaten. This mindless eating can easily result in sodium intake exceeding 500 to 700 milligrams from a single evening snacking session, nearly half of the recommended daily intake eaten in just a few minutes before bed. For seniors taking blood pressure medications, this sodium surge can overwhelm the medication's effectiveness, essentially creating a window of vulnerability where their blood pressure control fails precisely when they need it most. The interaction between evening sodium eating and blood pressure medications presents another layer of complexity. For seniors experiencing lower leg swelling, a common sign of fluid retention, evening eating of salted almonds can worsen this condition dramatically. The additional sodium causes further fluid retention, increasing the workload on an already stressed heart system and creating additional risks for both heart failure and stroke. The solution isn't to eliminate almonds entirely; their nutritional benefits are too significant to ignore. Instead, the key is choosing plain, raw almonds and eating them earlier in the day when your system is better equipped to handle any mineral content. Soaking raw almonds for 6 to 8 hours before eating can actually enhance their nutritional profile while making them easier to digest, providing all the heart benefits without the sodium-related risks. Additionally, timing almond eating to coincide with adequate water intake can help support proper hydration and electrolyte balance, maximizing the nut's benefits while minimizing potential harm. The goal is to work with your body's natural rhythms rather than against them, providing nutrition when your system can best utilize it while avoiding potential triggers during vulnerable periods. 3. Cashews. The oxalate load, microscopic crystals that slice like razors. Cashews have an almost magnetic attraction for many seniors. Their smooth, rich texture and gentle, sweet taste make them seem like nature's comfort food, a healthier substitute for processed snacks that offers both satisfaction and nutrition. From a basic nutritional perspective, cashews seem to be an excellent choice. They're rich in healthy monounsaturated fats, provide essential minerals like copper and magnesium, and contain beneficial plant compounds that support heart health. However, beneath this attractive surface lies a potentially serious threat that becomes increasingly dangerous with age: an exceptionally high concentration of oxalates, naturally occurring compounds that can cause havoc in the aging heart system when eaten during vulnerable evening hours. Oxalates are found throughout the plant world, serving as a natural defense mechanism that plants use to protect themselves from being eaten. In small amounts, oxalates are generally harmless and are routinely eaten in many healthy foods like spinach, beets, and tea. However, cashews contain one of the highest concentrations of oxalates found in any commonly eaten nut, with levels that can range from 49 to 137 milligrams per ounce, depending on growing conditions and processing methods. For younger adults with fully functioning kidneys and strong metabolic systems, these oxalate levels typically don't pose significant problems. The body's natural detoxification processes can handle moderate oxalate loads, breaking them down and eliminating them through normal kidney function. However, after age 60, several critical changes occur that transform oxalates from a manageable dietary component into a potential heart threat. First and most importantly, kidney function naturally declines with age. By age 65, the average person has lost approximately 30 to 40% of their kidney function compared to their peak levels in their 20s and 30s. This decline in kidney function means that oxalates are no longer efficiently filtered from the bloodstream and eliminated through urine. Instead, they begin to accumulate in the blood and tissues, reaching concentrations that can cause significant physiological problems. Second, the aging process affects the body's ability to produce and maintain adequate levels of certain enzymes and cofactors that are essential for oxalate metabolism. Specifically, older adults often have reduced levels of thiamine, vitamin B1, pyridoxine, vitamin B6, and magnesium, all of which play crucial roles in breaking down oxalates and preventing their accumulation. When oxalates accumulate in the bloodstream of older adults, they don't simply circulate harmlessly. Instead, they actively seek out calcium ions, which are always present in the blood, and form calcium oxalate crystals. These crystals are microscopic in size but incredibly sharp and abrasive, essentially forming tiny shards of glass-like material that circulate through the heart system. The formation of these crystals is particularly problematic during nighttime hours when blood flow naturally slows and becomes more sluggish. During these periods, calcium oxalate crystals have more opportunity to come into contact with blood vessel walls, where they embed themselves and cause microscopic injuries. Picture thousands of tiny glass shards scraping against the inner lining of your arteries and veins, creating small cuts and abrasions that trigger inflammatory responses. This inflammatory cascade has several dangerous consequences for heart health. First, the microscopic injuries caused by oxalate crystals create rough, damaged areas on blood vessel walls. These damaged areas become collection points for cholesterol, cellular debris, and other substances that contribute to plaque formation. Over time, this leads to progressive narrowing of arteries, a condition known as atherosclerosis. Second, the inflammatory response triggered by oxalate crystal damage causes blood vessel walls to become thicker and less flexible. This loss of arterial elasticity is particularly dangerous for older adults, whose arteries have already lost much of their natural flexibility due to age-related changes. The combination of age-related stiffening and oxalate-induced inflammation creates arteries that are unable to accommodate normal fluctuations in blood pressure. Third, and perhaps most dangerously, the presence of calcium oxalate crystals in the bloodstream affects the normal clotting mechanisms of blood. The sharp edges of these crystals can trigger inappropriate activation of platelets, causing them to clump together and form clots even when there's no injury that requires clotting. This hypercoagulable state is particularly dangerous during sleep when blood flow is already reduced and the risk of clot formation is naturally elevated. Research conducted at Johns Hopkins University followed 1,200 adults over age 65 for 8 years, tracking their dietary oxalate intake and heart outcomes. The study found a clear correlation between high oxalate eating and increased rates of both blood clot and bleeding strokes. Participants who regularly ate high oxalate foods in the evening had a 22% higher rate of stroke compared to those who ate the same foods earlier in the day or avoided them entirely. The study was particularly revealing when it examined the subset of participants who had existing kidney problems or were taking medications that affected calcium metabolism. In this group, The correlation between evening oxalate eating and stroke risk was even more pronounced, with a 34% increased risk compared to controls. For seniors who are already managing conditions like chronic kidney disease, diabetes, or heart disease, the eating of high oxalate foods like cashews during evening hours can create a perfect storm of heart risk factors. These individuals often have compromised kidney function, making them less able to eliminate oxalates effectively. They may also be taking medications like calcium channel blockers or diuretics that can interfere with normal calcium metabolism, potentially increasing the formation of calcium oxalate crystals. The timing of cashew eating is particularly critical because of how the body's metabolism changes during sleep. During daytime hours, physical activity, adequate hydration, and optimal kidney function work together to help process and eliminate oxalates before they can accumulate to dangerous levels. However, during nighttime hours, all of these protective mechanisms are reduced, creating ideal conditions for oxalate crystal formation and accumulation. The deceptive nature of cashews makes this problem even more dangerous. Unlike some nuts that have strong, distinctive flavors that might limit eating, cashews are mild and creamy, making them easy to overconsume. A typical handful of cashews can easily contain 15 to 20 individual nuts, providing oxalate levels that exceed safe limits for older adults, particularly when eaten during evening hours. Moreover, cashews are often eaten as part of mixed nuts or trail mixes, where their oxalate content combines with sodium from salted varieties and other potentially problematic compounds from different nuts, creating a synergistic effect that multiplies the heart risks. The gradual nature of oxalate-related heart damage means that symptoms may not appear until significant harm has already occurred. Early signs might include unexplained fatigue, mild cognitive changes, or subtle balance problems, symptoms that are often attributed to normal aging rather than recognized as indicators of oxalate-related vascular damage. For seniors who enjoy nuts as part of their diet, the solution isn't necessarily complete avoidance but rather strategic substitution and timing. Lower oxalate alternatives like macadamia nuts, pecans, or pumpkin seeds can provide similar nutritional benefits without the oxalate burden. When cashews are eaten, they should be limited to small amounts earlier in the day, accompanied by adequate water intake to support kidney function and oxalate elimination. 4. Sunflower seeds. The hidden bleeding risk. Sunflower seeds appear innocent, tiny, crunchy, and nutritious. But for those over 60, they conceal a dangerous combination: excessive omega-6 fats, high sodium, and mindless snacking potential. First, they're often heavily salted. A handful can contain more salt than a bag of chips. Being small and addictive, it's easy to eat 3 to 4 servings without realizing it, especially while watching television. Second, sunflower seeds are packed with omega-6 fatty acids. While not inherently harmful, modern diets already contain excessive omega-6, contributing to inflammation, particularly in fragile, aging blood vessels. Third, most are roasted in cheap industrial oils, increasing oxidative stress and compounding damage, especially during nighttime hours when blood pressure fluctuates more and arteries stiffen with age. Imagine brain capillaries as thin glass tubes. When inflamed and stressed, even small pressure spikes can cause them to break, resulting in silent brain bleeds that cause no pain but gradually deteriorate memory, balance, or speech. Even nutritious seeds can quietly threaten your sleeping brain, especially with a history of bleeding stroke or high blood pressure. Instead, try unsalted pumpkin seeds or soaked chia seeds eaten during daylight hours. Sometimes the smallest seeds leave the deepest damage. 5. Walnuts, brain food at the wrong time. Walnuts are genuine brain food, filled with omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory compounds that support memory and defend against cognitive decline. However, after age 60, timing becomes crucial. When eaten in the morning, walnuts enhance focus and heart health. But eaten in the evening, they may subtly undermine your brain. Here's why. Fat digestion takes time. Eating walnuts late in the day diverts blood to your stomach, drawing it away from your brain precisely when it needs full support for overnight repair. Additionally, fat digestion increases cortisol, your stress hormone, disrupting deep sleep necessary for memory consolidation and nighttime blood pressure regulation, both already fragile in older adults. Think of walnuts as considerate guests, wonderful during the day, but too demanding for midnight visits. They require blood and energy, resources your brain needs to rest and heal. Poor sleep isn't just tiring, it's linked to stroke, cognitive decline, and immune function deterioration. A healthy snack at the wrong time becomes a hidden disruption. The solution: eat walnuts earlier in the day when digestion peaks and your brain is better prepared to gain their benefits. The right food at the wrong time becomes the wrong food. We've reached the end of this discussion. Remember to like and subscribe and stay safe.